Quiet on this set. Here we go. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hello, everybody. I'm DearMYRTLE, your not so retired friend in genealogy. Welcome to Book Club. Our book this time is Albion Seed, and you can get that book by David Hackett Fischer from Amazon. But I was just checking today. I'll be giving you the link. Amazon is offering it as an audio book for 99 cents. So what I'm planning to do is the week prior to a particular folkway that we'll be discussing, I will be listening to that chapter from the book because, oh my gosh, this is kind of a heavy book. And I think as I'm doing things like walking or whatever, PT, I will do that. Let me stop screen sharing for a minute and introduce my panelists. Okay, so we've got our gal in Wales, Hillary. And Hillary's going to be talking with us. She's going to be doing the meeting on the 10th of November, which is south of England to Virginia, the distressed Cavaliers and indentured servants. Now, when I say she's going to be doing, she's the point person. The rest of us, that particular week, will have perused the chapter and I will likely say, I don't have distress. Well, actually, I do have distressed Cavaliers, but I'm thinking of my Quaker ancestors, another one of these 4 British folkway or migration patterns. And I will, as in my very limited homework, compare a point that sticks out that's really distinctly different between what Hillary's Cavaliers were doing and what my Quakers were doing. Like, for instance, their attitude about marriage or their attitude about women and their place in society. Okay, then we have Christine Charborough. She is up as point person next week on the Massachusetts, East Anglia to Massachusetts, those Puritans. So her homework is going to be a little more detailed because she is the one that gets, you have roots there, that that area very well, right, Christine?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So, and then so her homework might be a couple of pages where mine might be just half a page. And on the Saturday before book club, which meets next on the 27th, where we discuss East Anglia, I will compile the homework that Maria, the world's greatest neighbor, thank you for coming back, and Hillary and I have contributed, and collate that into a PDF with Christine's handout that she would think is important for you, and make that available in PDF during the broadcast. And then afterwards, I'll also link to that PDF in the description of the video. Very good. All right, so let's talk a little bit. Let me go back to sharing my screen, because what is Albion seed? It is actually possible for us, according to David Hackett Fischer, to easily see where some of our ancestors came from. These are the 4 migration groups that he's discussing, or the 4 folkways, British folkways in America. And they're quite distinct. And where I related primarily was the architecture that they used back in England is similar to the architecture that they used back across the pond over in England. For instance, this is backcountry. This is the Borderlands to the backcountry, flight from North Britain. 1717 to 1775. Although this photo is of a place in the mountains of North Carolina. We think of this as a plantation home. That would go with those distressed Cavaliers who had servants and slaves and huge plantations. And we're going to find out a little bit about the push-pull factors. A couple more slides, and then I want to talk about what you want to talk about. As we progress through this, my role this time in book club, as opposed to study group, I won't be lecturing that much. I might be the one that does Quakers. I have to discuss it with Maria. We will be basically developing some kind of a spreadsheet, sort of like this, to compare and contrast how the Puritans felt. They really pushed for public education, whereas like the Virginia Cavaliers, it's like, let's keep the general populace a little bit ignorant. Just saying. And as we discuss them, each one of the migration groups, the point person can elect to decide to bring resources to the table that they know would be valuable to your understanding that migration group that David Hackett Fischer discusses. He discusses this from a social history point of view with examples. And for instance, Christine might be referring to the Great Migration series. She's shaking her head. Yes, I see that. That coincide with or are integral to your study of this particular migration group if your people are among those early East Anglian to Massachusetts. Okay, and here's one. These are very famous Peter Coldham's work on the complete book of immigrants. Some of it overlaps, but there's a lot in these books about the distressed Cavaliers and indentured servants. And I am taking the stance that indentured servants is not the same thing as an enslaved person. All right. And then there's the group that I'm very interested in, the Friends migration. Cousin Russ and I had Quaker ancestors in common. And in fact, we missed the opportunity to go do our Pennsylvania tour. We went on a lot of tours with our spouses, mostly Civil War things, but we had planned this trip into the Delaware River Valley, so that extends up into Philly and Maryland and Delaware. Yeah, and there's your Borderlands people from the north part of Britain into the back country. And you see, none of these photos that I've shown you, except for the photo back here of the book itself, come from the book. And that is because, folks, we need to protect David Hackett Fischer's copyright and the publisher's interest in your buying this book. So I'd like to hear from the panelists. Let me maybe start with Christine. You've seen my book and all my sticky notes, which librarians don't like so much, but it's how I learn. I underline in the Bible, so yeah. Tell me the impact this has on a genealogist who wants to understand more about the daily life of an ancestor from England.
So I think in particular, Albion seed was actually gifted to me by my husband before we were married. Because I am descended from some folks in the Great Migration with the surname of Davis. And he is descended from folks that came in through Virginia. And so I have found the book to be extremely helpful in identifying different ways that people came in, different traditions that they formed, different, weather, even right down to the weather patterns. The way New England weather is ferocious, which is why in the book they said, we're all kind of rude and closed off. And, I think to a certain extent, I'm a born and bred New Englander. I think that's true.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, a lot of what he writes about is very still apropos today. And as I was reviewing the chapters on East Anglia, and I had the good fortune prior to his passing of taking the class with Robert Charles
Oh boy.
Anderson, who wrote the Great Migration Project, and he was absolutely amazing. And I'll be bringing some of that to the table. But all that to say that I don't have the obvious stickies, but I do highlight
I hear you.
because it's
Thank you for
mine and I can do that.
Thank you. Exactly. It's how my brain works. I have to use sticky notes. If I'm learning new software, I have sticky notes all around my monitor instead of reading the manual under help. Which is just how it works. All right, we've got some people out there, and I want to recognize that Gwenny's here, and there's Maria a couple of times. There's a couple more folks that are here. Bobby's here, and thank you. Let me know if you're there and what migration you think you have. And I will send, you need the link to the Albion seed. Let me go get that for you right now, and I will send it to the chat. And when you go there to Amazon, that's Amazon US. I don't know what it looks like for you, Hillary, over there in the UK. But you get the choice of a Kindle version, which is really good because it's PDF and it's every word searchable. So you could look up marriage, and then it would take you through all in the order of the book, all the things that have to do with marriage, and you could quickly then determine the distinct traditions between each one of these groups in their attitude toward marriage. But it's also available in audiobook, and I did not know that. As I told you, I'm going to be looking at that. And by the way, you don't need a Kindle to read an Amazon Kindle book. You just need the app. I wouldn't recommend reading this app on your phone.
Oh,
This particular.
I have been reading it on the Kindle app on the phone.
You have? It's
Yeah.
already like the font style is Times New Roman and it's really tiny font for this old Myrt. But anyway, I digress. Now, part of why I interject humor is to take the stress out. I want each of my panelists, and Maria, I know you just came in, so I was trying not to bug you and make you say anything much. Um, I want us to, all of us as panelists, and as attendees who are attending in person or those who view later, to feel comfortable here. Feel comfortable posting a comment or a question. Feel comfortable discussing something back and forth. We have always in our work tried, and I say the the proverbial we, because old Myrt doesn't do any of these things on her own. I rely on panelists. It takes a village to tell the story. I may skip over a part that's pretty important. Um, Something else now about what we're planning to do. I had planned that we'd do this every other Monday, following Mondays with Myrt. But in December, we have a challenge, and that is that I would like us to meet on December 1st, not December 8th. So it's in our email to each other that I sent to the panelists last evening, and I hope that that will work with you. All right. Now, here's what each of us as panelists are going to do. We are going to read the chapter and use it as inspiration for telling our interpretation of basic folkways or mores or cultural practices of people in that ethnic group. And we learn a lot about our own ancestors by comparing and contrasting what has come down through the generations. Like I have a lot of German ancestors that came around 1848, And the thing is, 7 sweets and 7 sours, and have plenty of food on the table, that shows respect to people. 'Cause I always have way too much food when family comes over. Um, and that's come down through the generations on my grandma Myrtle's side. Um, and but I am intrigued because I just think of that as normal. But then it might not be normal for what you do. Like, we don't eat lobster. We don't have lobsters here in the Pacific Northwest. We have crabs and we have salmon, and those are our two go-to seafood things. So I would know to go to Christine because of her New England roots if I needed to have a good crab Louie recipe or something. She would know where to go to get it. And when we look at those things, they're really beautiful things to learn. And we can learn this about our neighbors now with the immigrants that live, and we are the immigrants here on this island. It was originally Samish Indian, Samish native indigenous population. This is actually Indigenous Peoples Day. I have learned to be even more aware and more open and thoughtful because of living here and realizing when I went to buy a book on the early settlers of Guimas Island, where I live, it was about the white settlers, not about the 10,000-year history of the Samish people. Their tradition was oral. The white people, their tradition is documents of land entry files and, you know, pensions, and we have a lot of Civil War pensioners who came here. Um, and so that part's easy. I can do that. So for me to learn the cultural history and traditions of the Samish people here, I need to step outside of my comfort zone. But bring your questions forward. Okay, well, let me just read this little part. Cindy says she's got the Kindle version, which is good for her poor eyesight. Yeah, especially when you can click that increase font size button. Yeah, I already have membership, Gwenny, to I listen to audiobooks. And I'm doing it more frequently, like when I'm quilting, when I'm piecing and I'm doing the same thing. I listen to that. Um, I listen to an audiobook, and starting to do it more in the nighttime when Mr. Myrt's sleeping, and I'm maybe, that dump truck hit me years ago, so I have issues with pain that sometimes wake me up, and that helps me. I'm not saying David Hackett Fischer's putting me to sleep, but I'm saying that does help to listen through my Bluetooth to my hearing aids. Yeah. You descend through Bradford? Uh, was he pretty grumpy? Is that his?
I was told he was when I went to the Mayflower booth at Roots Tech, that he was kind of ornery, and I haven't done a ton of study that way since I was distracted across the pond, but I'm excited
Yes.
to learn more.
You want to talk to Maria about Polish research, Russian, Polish, all that part of the world. Yes. So you're going to enjoy what Chris brings to the table.
Yeah.
There were very exacting things religiously that affected the Mormon church in its early days, and it's gradually, very gradually loosening up. Yeah. Oh, interesting. Okay. Each panelist will read the chapter and submit homework based on principles outlined in our private group. Well, there's a certain way to, if you are ever in my study groups, it really helps if you use Microsoft Word, you panelists, and use footnotes, not endnotes, etc. Because when I compile somebody else's homework with yours, Everything gets all messed up in the footnote endnote department. It's a mess. But it is important to me to consolidate the homework so that our attendees and each one of us can see how the others are reacting to the chapter that we're discussing. So usually when you go to book club, we all read the book and we talk about it for an hour or an hour and a half. Our book clubs are different. It took us a long time to get through Dr. Jones's mastering genealogical documentation. Okay, do add an image, panelists, to your homework, and that's where I want to show this screen because I was very careful to not use any images from the book. However, I could not draw this map without looking at what David Hackett Fischer did in his book on page 579. And in describing how the Plymouth Township, Philadelphia County, Pennsylvania, the Quaker Meeting House, the main road, I had to draw it myself, and it made me think a lot. It helped me understand a great deal. And that's what I shared as a graphic when we were discussing how the homes were built, how the town was arranged with the property out back. Yeah, and it's not perfect, but you get the point. And I'm now referring people back to the better map within the book. So I would suggest that we do that kind of thing if we are trying to illustrate something that comes from the book or was inspired by the book. That's what we do with our books at Book Club. They inspire us. And then the rest, so the homework is likely to be larger, couple of pages, not homework, but the write-up, you know. And the other panelists may respond with one or two folkways. But the benefit is that although, and I can hear some typing or something, so maybe we could not do that. Or mute yourself. Do you hear a little thump, thump, thump? Interesting. It's probably, well, StreamYard's been interesting. What does it sound like on the YouTube side? It's like there's some music going on. Okay, now it's quiet. It's Hillary. Thank you, Hillary. That's okay. It's just StreamYard today. The point person has an advantage. First of all, instead of me leading the whole discussion, the point person leads the discussion. So as soon as I can collate the homework from the four of us and possibly one other person, I'll send it like right away to Christine because she's the next point person, as well as to the rest of you. She may decide that the way I collated the homework, I mean, I'd put hers first, but she may decide to tell you to skip to page 5 because that's the order she wishes to look at our homework and our reaction or how we were inspired. But the point person also gets to decide if there's one or two other folkways that she wishes to discuss. So let me talk about folkways for a bit. So folkways are habitual usages, manners, customs, mores, and morals, as the author of the book speaks. Okay? And these are like speech, some of the very same colloquial uses of the English language, or a twang, or an accent, can be traced directly from the each of these migration patterns, now how those people speak, and to their place back in England, how they are still continuing to speak. You know how accents can be different. The attitude about family, marriage, sex, child rearing, all of these things. But the ones with the red star, the asterisks, are the ones that we are trying to focus on. Otherwise, we'd be here forever and a day. The point person gets to choose which ones to accentuate and may decide to add one or two additional items, like maybe how they prepare for death or naming practices. Just for example, might be what that point person considers important. And so you as a point person, Christine, can make those determinations. Now, I know you wrote to me personally. Is this making better sense now as to the content that you might be discussing?
Yes, I just wanted to make sure I covered everything that you wanted covered and didn't leave anything out, because of course, since this is something that I've been working on for a long time, I can also wax on forever. So I also wanted to make sure that not only that I had enough, but that I focused it, because I could just get lost in the weeds.
I think and those are very interesting weeds. And were you doing a 4-part study and you took the whole 45 minutes each time, then you could expound even more. I mean, like you say, entire book series have been written on this migration group. But we're just going to use these several that are mentioned in this slide. And you are free to use this graphic if you wish. You may use the book as a graphic in your homework. And if you quote something directly from the book, it should not be more than, like I just did here. Of course, I didn't cite him on the slide, and I neglected to do that. This is a very old slide from the last time I did this. It was a study group in those days. This is a direct quote, the part I put in quotation, from David Hackett Fischer. The point is, we want people to buy this book. Hillary, you've been reading the book. What's your reaction to the book? And I'm not sure. Let me know in the private chat, Maria, if you want to mention how you're feeling about the book. Because I missed talking to you in the green room. Thank you for coming over. Okay, Hillary.
I've just read the introduction and the first bit about the first bit where they go to the Massachusetts one, and I'm reading about the general sort of thing. It's not an area that I'm familiar with, so I'm more familiar with where they came from.
Being in Wales with British research, yes.
My husband's got a family. His roots are more in that sort of area. That's that part of the country. So I know there's a bit about it and whatever. I've visited, as shall we say. So it's sort of trying to reflect how much that might be over. I'll have to have a think about how I'm going to approach it. So.
So, Christine, we've got a couple of feedback like Hillary, where similar to Hillary's, where she knows more about what's happening in England, about their roots, and not about what happened when they came to America. And Becky is saying she'd like to find out more about her fullers related to Mayflower fullers. And Tate says getting help with your ancestors. And the point of book club is to discuss this book and these 4 migration patterns to the Americas. If you have general research questions, I would refer you to Mondays with Myrt. I would refer you to FamilySearch.org's wiki. Because that's a free website. You just have to have membership like you do with any wiki. If you want to interact, you need to sign in. And yeah, okay. let us know what migration group you think your people are. Becky is saying she knows hers are those, that first group, the East Anglia to Massachusetts group, possibly because of the Fuller name. But doesn't always mean that I mean, Fullers can mean a number of different ethnic groups or migration patterns. That probably should, maybe we should, out of the scope of our normal book club thing, maybe we should mention that the basic thing we do with research, and I'm not picking on you at all, Becky, because this is exactly what we're trying to determine. It used to be that our ancestors, let's say in the 1890s to about 1920, they did these mug books at a county level here in the U.S. And they wanted to say they were descended from the Fullers of the Mayflower or whatever. That's not how we do research. We do research based on my birth certificate and my church baptism record, etc., lists these as my legal parents. And then their parents were listed on their marriage record and then on their birth records. And as we go back in time between us and, for instance, that Mayflower possibility, we have to prove from this generation going back to our satisfaction and not jump. We're not even talking about the silver books yet. You might want to mention that next week to clarify for Becky. Because there has been some pretty good work done by the Mayflower Society. But still, we need to do our reasonably exhaustive research on each generation. And when birth records give out because they weren't required by the government, it's church records. So in some cases, some of my English research, it goes back to the 1500s when that parish was first established. It's unusual for 1500s. It's likely for 1700s. But public records, for instance, in England, was it 1837, Hillary, that public vital records of birth and marriage began to be kept?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
good.
And
We
a lot
got
of
that.
people even living in the country now can't, that could perhaps access archives, can't actually trace back much before that.
Yeah,
I mean,
hear
my husband's got Brewsters in his family, which may have possibly have a connection to Brewsters that emigrated. But I've only got so far back with them. I would not say that they are necessarily related, even though they were in a similar area of the country.
Yes, so we are always looking for some contemporary documentation. And of course, DNA helps a little bit. Let's see. So Becky's saying she can go back to Illinois about 1870 and cannot prove they are supposedly in Ohio before that. So we can see where you are in your research. So 1870, you're probably looking at a census record. And that's good because it lists the full name of individuals in 1870. All right, this is not really a primer on research methodology like mastering genealogical proof. Dr. Jones's book. Oh, great! I'm having an avalanche of books. This is a good book, Mastering Genealogical Proof. It isn't 3 documents, and then you can move to the next generation back. Because in my case, on my grandmother's birth date, her death certificate says one thing, her obituary agrees with that date, and her funeral card agrees with that date. But what is that? What is the source of those 3 documents? It's my mother, who gave information at the funeral home for the death certificate. Death certificate's great for birth. We got a lot to go for. And Mondays with Myrt talks about we focus on beginning genealogy research. I think you're doing great if you got to the 1870s. All right, back to book club. Are there any questions from my panelists about what the homework should be looking like? Because our time's almost up. Okay, you're comfortable with that? Okay, Maria, we have left. I know that you have a possibility of a conflict with work, and I can be very adaptable with you. So afterwards, you and I need to decide if we want to do the Quaker or the migration or the Scottish, the borderlands in England that came to the back country. So
probably because my maiden name is Scottish, I probably should do that.
the last one. Oh, perfect. Okay, because then I can do my Quakers like I'd like. I love it when a plan comes together. It's so wonderful. All right. Now, are there any questions about those of you who are on the YouTube side? You could already seen, most of you already normally come to Mondays with Myrt. Every week it will be a different item on Dear Myrtle Archive at YouTube. Just like you came to this event, as soon as I get my act together, probably tomorrow morning, I will schedule it for next week so the panelists will have a separate, not this link, but a new link, and I'll give it to us in our super secret book club Facebook group, which I see you found that, Christine. And I will, StreamYard automatically posts it over there for me on YouTube based on the technology that makes this happen. That technology also makes it possible for you. Thank you, Becky, for saying thank you. I love it. That was thoughtful. But thanks to this technology, when you type in a comment over on the YouTube side, it comes up on the side of our screen, and we can see what is where you are in the conversation and if you have a question. Yeah. Like, for instance, somebody asked for the link for the book. Crazy that I didn't even share it. I think we need to adjourn because we try to keep this fairly brief. The book is not fairly brief. In fact, I wish I could spend a day with David Hackett Fischer to query him on a few things. But we're going to have fun. Any other comments from the YouTube side? Okay, I don't have a host on the YouTube side, but Hillary, I know that you can be over there. Also, I can see everything that's happening, and I can slow down or delete. We haven't had any incursions in years on the YouTube side, so I think we're set. All right, I'm going to download the audio version of the book, and I'm going to start listening to East Anglia to Massachusetts, the English Puritans. And I will be submitting my homework on this Saturday prior to our next meeting, which is the 27th of October. Okay?
Yeah.
Are we good? Okay. Nothing left to say, but I'm Dear Myrtle, your not so retired friend in genealogy. Happy family tree climbing, everybody. That's a wrap.